If you're going to get entrepreneurship again, you have to have an environment that's hospitable to entrepreneurship. And one of the key things that is holding this economy back, sadly, is the most boring subject in the world, which is why it doesn't get much attention. And that is monetary policy. I can see the eyelids getting heavy already. You know, Bernanke, Greenspan, interest rates. But without a stable currency, you're not going to get growth. Weak dollar means weak recovery. Money is not made by government. Money is organically made by people doing transactions in the marketplace. And when the government starts to muck it up, what happens when you start to trash the dollar is investment goes from things that you don't see into things that you do see. We could never have had this housing bubble. The Federal Reserve hadn't gone on a bender. We wouldn't have had this sovereign debt crisis if the regulatory mistakes had not been made. Just think of it as you would an hour. You have 60 minutes in an hour. Imagine if we floated the hour, or the government trashed the hour the way it trashes the dollar. So you have 60 minutes an hour one day, 48 the next, 96 the next. You'd soon have to have hedges, derivatives, futures to figure out how many hours you're working. Each day in your handheld, you have to see, is this an Arizona hour, Las Vegas hour, a Bangladesh hour? It would just make life immensely complicated. So the key thing is, dollar has to be stabilized. This Fed is absolutely oblivious to it. So is the current ECB and others. Number one, boring but essential. Number two, tax code. We have a horrific tax code. 6.5 billion hours a year filling out tax forms. Stupid. Get rid of it. Put in something like the flat tax. And on the regulatory side, we're crushing businesses with regulation. We're talking about why don't we have more antibiotics in healthcare? Well, the FDA's made it impossible for companies to develop that in this country. They're doing it in other areas. What are the two most dysfunctional parts of our economy? Education and healthcare. You don't have real free markets, certainly not in education. Even in higher education, thanks to the government, we have a tuition bubble and bloat. Tuition's increasing twice the rate of healthcare costs, just more staff and the like. That's got to change. And in terms of healthcare, we have pieces of the healthcare market that has free markets, but not a lot. And the proof of it is, if you go to a doctor or a hospital or a clinic and you ask in advance what it costs, you're going to get a very strange look. It means either you're uninsured or you're a lunatic. Why would you want to know what it costs? Can you imagine how strange that is? We've grown up with it, so we don't realize how crazy that is. Yeah. But imagine going to restaurants, buying a bottle of wine, saying, I don't care what it costs, let Blue Shield and Medicare worry about it. So the system goes crazy. So in terms of education and healthcare, open it up to free markets. You can put in effective safety nets. And you will see enormous changes in healthcare, turning a hopeless liability into the most dynamic growth industry in the world, because healthcare is personal.
Right. Yeah, Steve, I want to pick up, Steve Forbes, I want to pick up on the monetary policy question. One of the topics that comes up on this issue of jobs is the role of the U.S. as a reserve currency and the rate at which we keep that, because that has implications for how we think about trade. In fact, I'm trying to see if I can find him. Scott Cook and I were having this debate last night about the issue of the dollar and how that translates to even trade, and to whether if we lowered that, in fact, that could actually improve the U.S.'s trade position in a way that benefits jobs.
No, it's an absolute illusion that if you tamper with your currency, you're going to absolutely improve your standing in terms of economic growth. If trashing your money was the way to wealth, Zimbabwe and Argentina would own the world today. Right. It does not work. Right. And you need a steady value. And in terms of the dollar, it is the global currency because of the U.S. economy, just as it used to be Spanish silver, then the British pound. Today it's the dollar. When we muck that up, it makes it very hard to do transactions. Again, it focuses investment on existing things like houses, like commodity, like land, instead of the mine for the future. We saw the same thing in the 70s when we finally killed inflation in the early 80s. That's when we became an innovative country again. So, and I'll throw something out just to show you I'm truly not running for office, that I'm an agitator today. And that is, I think in 5 years, we're going to see the dollar relinked to GOLD. It's got to be done.